Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to explore one of the most unusual and shocking disasters in history, a catastrophe so strange that many people still can't believe it actually happened. It is the London beer flood of 1814, a day when thousands of gallons of beer burst from a massive vat and swept through the streets, destroying homes and taking lives. At first glance, the event sounds almost like a dark comedy, but in reality it was a tragedy born from industrial ambition, poor safety measures, and sheer bad luck. This was a time when London's brewing industry was at its peak, with enormous facilities producing beer for the masses, and the Meux and Company Brewery was one of the giants in this booming trade. Situated in the bustling St. Giles district, the brewery was a landmark, both for its towering structures and for the rich aroma of malt and hops that drifted through the neighborhood. From the outside, the brewery was an impressive sight. Huge wooden vats dominated the skyline, supported by sturdy beams and held together with thick iron hoops. These vats were feats of engineering for their time, built to hold unimaginable volumes of liquid. The most famous vat, the one that would later become the centerpiece of this disaster, was more than 22 feet high and held over 1.4 million liters of beer. From the street, the building looked like a fortress of industry, a place where the art of brewing had been scaled up to an almost unimaginable size. The brewery symbolized prosperity and progress, but hidden beneath this industrial pride was a brewing danger that no one seemed to notice, or perhaps, no one wanted to admit. Inside the brewery, the scene was a labyrinth of wooden supports, barrels stacked high, and a constant hum of brewing activity. Workers moved between vats, tending to the fermenting beer and monitoring temperatures, though much of the work relied on experience rather than precise scientific measurements. The massive vat that would later rupture stood in the heart of the building, towering over the workers and radiating the warm, malty scent of fermenting porter. The air was thick and humid, the sound of bubbling fermentation echoing through the space. For the men who worked there, it was a place of routine, though some of them had likely noticed the aging iron hoops on the vats and the occasional creaks from the wooden frames. Still, in an era before modern safety inspections, such concerns were often ignored or seen as simply part of the job. The performance of the brewery, in terms of output, was unmatched. The Meux and Company Brewery produced thousands of barrels of beer each year, supplying taverns and inns across the city. But on the afternoon of October 17, 1814, its performance took a tragic turn. Without warning, one of the giant iron hoops securing the great vat snapped with a sharp metallic crack. The pressure inside was immense, and the moment the hoop gave way, the wooden staves of the vat split apart. In an instant, a roaring wall of beer exploded outward, shattering the brewery walls and cascading into the streets. Witnesses described the sound as a deafening crash, followed by the sight of an unstoppable wave of dark liquid surging through the neighborhood. Safety features were practically non-existent in the early 19th century brewing industry. There were no reinforced containment areas, no overflow channels, and no structural backups in case of a vat failure. The vats themselves were marvels of craftsmanship, but they were also prone to wear, and maintenance was often deferred in favor of keeping production going. The brewery had experienced smaller leaks before, but nothing like this. Once the vat burst, there was nothing anyone could do. The wave of beer swept through nearby streets, collapsing the walls of houses and flooding cellars where families were gathered. In the tightly packed slums of St. Giles, there was no escape for many. What makes this event stand out, its strange and grim unique selling point, is the sheer absurdity of a beer flood. Disasters in history are often caused by fire, earthquakes, or storms, but this was a flood of porter beer, the very product that was supposed to bring profit and joy. The streets ran brown with alcohol, and some residents tried desperately to save what they could by scooping it into containers, while others fought simply to survive. It was a surreal scene, both unbelievable and horrifying. Newspapers at the time reported it with a mix of shock and morbid fascination, ensuring that the tale spread far beyond London. The price of this disaster was heavy. 8 people lost their lives, including women and children, many of them trapped in their homes or cellars when the flood hit. Entire families were left homeless as their houses collapsed under the force of the liquid. The brewery suffered enormous financial losses, not just from the destruction of the beer but also from the damage to the building and equipment. In an attempt to recover, the owners petitioned Parliament for relief from the taxes on the beer they had lost, arguing that it had been destroyed in an unavoidable accident. The request was granted, but the cost to the community was far greater than any financial figure could express. In the end, the London beer flood of 1814 became a strange but lasting part of history, a reminder that even the most seemingly harmless industries can cause disaster when safety is overlooked. It showed the dangers of relying solely on traditional craftsmanship without proper maintenance or modern safeguards. While beer is something people usually enjoy in moderation, that day proved that too much, delivered all at once, can be a deadly force. This was not just a brewing accident, it was a tragedy that changed lives and left a lasting impression on the city's memory, a dark chapter in the otherwise cheerful history of beer.